Three of three of the second series of talks on biological diversity at John Abbott College by Oliver Hillel, Program Officer of the Secretariat of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity.
So, also I've learned that, and I should say this sounds like a commonplace, but I've learned the hard way. It's all about self-learning. It's all about being respectful of each of the students or participants' rhythm, ambitions, way of learning. People learn through images, people learn through words, people learn through acting, people learn through their own ways. And, I'll give you an example. I was in a project in the Philippines, right? I told you about that, and I had goals. So I came to say, okay, we have to do those reports, we have to do that work, we have to do that many trainings, and so I have my own goals, and I try to impose those goals on the reality half of the time. And that was a waste of my time. The moment I understood that you cannot really change things just like you want, that things will happen in the way that they happen, and then in fact, you're much smarter if you see what each of those people in your team can actually do, and then help them do what they want to do. And, do the reports, deliver the deliverables, but pay attention to what really comes out of that process. It's so rich, and it's so much more productive. So that's why I'm saying there, ownership of the process is much more important to reach your own goals, or the school's goals, or Canada's, or Quebec's goals. So in a way, I think it's a way to be flexible in the way you're doing your education and your learning, is to respect that. So those are the thoughts I wanted to share with you, and I'd love to hear a little bit maybe on a question and answers exchange. Thank you very much. Just before we open for that, let me just say that, again, I think there is a wonderful opportunity to cooperate with this group particularly, because I feel that you bring together that integration of the educational process, and I'd love to hear some of your ideas how each of you in your practice and the students in their practice can do something concrete over the next, let's say, 6 months. I'm putting you on the spot, I told you.
I see behind all of this is that there's a deeply ethical current that needs to be addressed. And unfortunately, all of the people who engage in our economic activities and our political activities are not particularly ethical, if I can put it delicately. How do we address those people who don't give a damn? Really don't care whether or not they're doing a harm to other people that are going to be having to deal with the consequences after they're gone.
Okay, I'm going to try to be an optimist here. My job, in fact, I face that kind of situation all the time. So what I'm trying to find out is, why doesn't that person care? It's not possible that person doesn't care about life on Earth. It's just not possible. That person must care somewhere. So there's something stopping that person from doing the right thing, even though that person deeply down cares. So what I'm trying to find out is, what is this barrier? Very often, it's as simple as a diplomat who's been told, you cannot spend a single wet cent in this convention. You don't have the money. That's the problem. So in that case, the first thing I want to say is, this decision will have no financial implications whatsoever. It just changes the way you do stuff. It doesn't change how much you spend. And then the person, okay, that sounds like an idea I can sell to my boss. And then, of course, that person goes, well, what do you mean? What can I change? So that's when you start engaging. But it's also important to try to find out, because as I say, I, as a human being, after so many years in this job, I have never met somebody that you can talk to and that person. I mean, yes, maybe somebody who says, the whole world is sucks. It doesn't make sense. We just have to have fun, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and, it's going to end by 2012. Anyway, the mind said that. That's the only mindset that I can't do anything to change. But I can still tell them, well, if you can live from here to 2012 with biodiversity running, you'll be happy. So anyway, the rest of anyone who cares, who wants to have a career, who wants to go on, that person does it. So it's a question of finding what's keeping it from working.
Oh, you asked a very important question. What can we do in our daily life, in our daily practice? And I mean, there's not much, but there's still much, a lot that we can do. And as we get the ball rolling, new opportunities open up. I'm an economist. In my classes, I always talk bring the issue of the environment, including biodiversity, and the impact we're having, and the danger we're putting ourselves in. And I shock my students in telling them that we might be heading for a dark age, the way we are destroying the capital, the national capital of our planet. In my presentation on resources, when we talk about factors of production in economics, usually in the main textbooks they talk about land. And they talk about raw materials as an extension of land. But they don't touch on biological or the all other life forms of the planet either. In my categorization of resources, I include natural resources as an important resource, as well as the three components, non-renewable, renewable, and indestructible. Land, even if we destroy our land, the planet with a nuclear war, the planet will still be there, the land will still be there, but we destroy everything else around it. Is the concept of depreciation. Physical capital, it's well understood that in accounting practices we have to depreciate the investment we made in physical capital. In natural resource economics, there's the concept of depletion of natural resources. Now, we're not doing enough. We have to account that into our accounting practices.
If I may disturb you, the problem is, when you talk about depreciation, the problem we have is value appreciation. So nature keeps it, because nature, the natural capital, doesn't have, unless you destroy it, it doesn't depreciate. So how do you measure the non-depreciation and put it back into your equation?
That's exactly the point I'm driving at, is that if we can find a way to value the natural capital, and there are ways, and there is research taking place in that area, then we can impose a cost for depleting natural resources that then consumers have to pay, including those who import products from countries like Peru, as you said earlier. So that has to be factored into the pricing system so that both the world's consumers incorporate that cost of depleting the natural capital of our planet. Other than that, I also give my students an example of how one can save almost 20% fuel consumption when you drive a car. By not accelerating too fast, by driving around 90 kilometers an hour, by just managing the way they drive to avoid using gas and their brake pads. I mean, one can save a lot over time by driving carefully. And I also stress to them what I do in my private life in order to reuse, and recycle, because there's a lot of things we can do. By cutting down 50% of the consumption of plastics, let's say in our personal life, that's a huge reduction. Now, I don't look, my basic guiding principle here, which I'd like to stress, is that one should not expect others to start changing. One should make changes on their own without expecting others. If everybody makes that commitment, change will happen instantly.
Thank you. That's a very good intervention. And I just want to pick up on two things that you said. The first one is the fascinating challenge of bringing natural capital into the economic equations and the financial equations as well, and the accounting equations, national accounts, even corporate accounts. Yes. So we need to bring this in, and what I think is it's fascinating. And I do think that many people without an economic talent could easily understand that and could make contributions. I know, for instance, that just in terms of accounting, that accounting science, actuarial science, the insurance business, they all need people with that mindset to help them figure out how to bring those things into the equation. I think that's a very interesting challenge.
But do you have any idea, like, how much all those repairs would end up costing humanity? Because those figures, if we actually have those figures, we'll be able to rationalize, well, in terms of spatial value, that's not that much for our continued existence.
Thank you. I mean, first of all, I want and thank you for your point of view as well, which I think is great, in the sense of imagine the anxiety of young people today when they're told that the world is going, down, right? And that are things that you can't change anymore, and it's true. And it's also very easy for us from the previous generations to say, well, the problem is yours now. We've done our part, now it's up to you to solve the problems of the world and just start stepping out. And that happens quite a lot. So I have daughters from the age of between 12 and 23, and I see how, to a certain extent, worrying it is. So there is more power and more information and more capacity to change than there ever was before. So the fact that all those changes are happening are, yes, it's concerning. Some of them we may have nothing to do about, so we might, we might not be able to change, so we're going to have to live with the consequences. But most importantly, I think we just have to slowly take right decisions. And the idea of an alternative cost can help, but only very, in very short intervals. It's not like, oh, what does it cost to change the whole thing?
If I may add an economic perspective to this question. Right now, our economy depends on a continual flow of spending. So employment, production, we have to keep spending. We're spending on a lot of material things that we don't always benefit from. Start to spending on cleaning up the environment, creating sustainability, putting back, reinvigorating the environment and making it more sustainable will create jobs, will create income, will create profits. So that's not an issue. What is lacking here is the vision on the part of our policymakers. We've seen the last 2 years since the bubbles collapsed, they've spent trillions in bailing out the banks in order to safeguard the loan obligations of clients and counterparties. If a small part of that money was devoted to investing back into our environment, from simple things like planting trees, we could create jobs, opportunities, and cure the economy without, and investing in our future at the same time. So,
and I think
the economic issue is not an issue; it's an issue of vision and values.
And to complement what you just said, I would like to say that there's two levels of that. There's the macroeconomic level, in which you have to change slowly the way things operate. But there's also your personal level. And I think what I'd like you to go away from here is at least a thought on particularly those who still have this challenging thing called career before them. And this is your case, but many of us live with these people as our students. Try to find a way to make your life believing in what you do and walking that talk. If you can, whatever your professional decision is, if you can make your own job, and I feel privileged, and my colleagues as well, they're starting on their jobs or doing their masters, but at least we know how can we earn our own money doing something that we believe in. And again, if you're a mechanic, a car mechanic, you can do a lot of stuff. If you're whatever you want, really you can do a lot. And I think that's what will change the economy from within, because people will start doing things that are more sustainable. And that ranges from how, I once spent 45 minutes in a supermarket discussing with myself and my friend, what kind of products should you buy? Should you buy organic from Canada, or should you buy from somewhere else? Or if you have organic from the United States and you have locally produced, which is the one that's better? All those things, we need to start thinking about that, because nobody did before. And I think this is the idea of
walking the talk.